I am so happy to have Back to the City back. Here we are at the new home of Back to the City, my actual new home. And Ivy is the first guest. Welcome back to the City, Ivy.
Thank you, I'm happy to be here.
The first time that you were on Back to the City, you were joining me, Dr. Calder, rather. You were joining Dr. Calder, who I am again in my suit, for the Dr. Calder record release at VFW. And now we're discussing the Poison Ivy and the People EP release, which is going to be on Thursday, July 3rd, so like a Friday like Thursday, right before July 4th. We have two events that night at VFW, Poison Ivy and the People EP release, and then Poison Ivy and the People EP release after party, featuring Dr. Tracksuit from Tanz Club and 3125 from Glitter Dark and Twin Flame, and actually also Malian, our friend Clinton. Could you say a little bit about the EP release to begin with? Who else is on the bill and what's going on?
Yeah, totally. So, well, I was also thinking about how we played your album release, and now I'm really excited to have you playing ours.
Yeah, I haven't written the songs yet. There's a little bit called Phoenix's Rise. Cephas is my alter ego. We talked a little bit about him in that previous interview. Mm-hmm. All that exists at this point of the Phoenix's Rise set is Phoenix's Rise. That's not a surprise. I mean, no one expects them to meet their demise, but what I surmise when I process the data is I won't regret being inflamed later. That's what Phoenix's Rise is so far. And it's a work in progress. But yes, Ivy invited Simon to hop on the bill, and so I have given myself the challenge of writing two songs, Phoenix's Rise. So thank you very much for that invitation.
I look forward to it. So Afters and Runaway Ricochet are the two other bands that are going to be playing that night.
They're both great.
They're both amazing. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge fan of both of those bands.
I followed Megan for a long time in previous projects.
Yeah, I recently saw Afters for the first time and was just like, I have to play with them. Mm-hmm. Amazing show, amazing music. Mm-hmm. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Runaway Ricochet is a ska band, and I didn't know how much I needed ska in my life until I saw them. They're just so much fun, so much talent in that band. Insanely technical, and
there's something about the energy, the vibe of ska.
So fun, it's just so fun.
There's the joy.
So much joy, great music, great musicians. I'm very grateful to have these bands on the bill for this release show. One
of my favorite lyrics in the song He, Him, which probably is going to be released as a standalone single later, maybe on the EP, TBD.
Probably as a single
Probably
later
a single
in the summer.
later, yep. One of my favorite lyrics in that is, and if you don't like to dance, there's a conflict. We like to dance.
We do, we love to dance.
Which is why we have pulled our resources together to have this part two with some techno and electro from Dr. Tracksuit and 3125 and Malian. For me, I experience a lot of connection, meaningful human connection through dancing, even more so than through writing and performing live music. I have, in recent years, really explored the Twin Cities dance scene a lot more than I had done in the past. Mm-hmm. And I experienced connection there. And the reason why I highlight this is because Robot Ghost, in the little event description that you put together, is about feeling disconnected from everything. It's about feeling unloved, exhausted, and lost in a confusing world where you can never win. So I wondered whether we could have this be a starting point to think about connection and disconnection. And there are a few references to dancing, and if you don't like to dance, that's a conflict. Do you have any immediate thoughts about music, both live music and dance music, and connection and disconnection in relation to the EP?
These songs, even though I wrote them years ago, still feel that way to me, you know, like applicable to my present life. In some of these songs, I feel, and in shows in general, I'll get feedback about like, you know, people really relating to some of my songs, and that makes me feel amazing because one, it makes me feel less alone, and I know that it makes them feel less alone. A lot of it, even when I am on stage, like singing these words and like being really vulnerable, I very much don't feel alone because it's like this space of it being shared and like knowing that it's being received.
It's relatable content. So for example, Can't Wait to Sleep. I have days when I don't want to get out of bed in the day's beginning and I'd rather it just be ending. Something I love about this song though is the juxtaposition of that being the state of mind of the narrator, but then it's also so high energy and bombastic. And I think that's such a clever way of presenting this song with that set of musicians. I feel like a number of these songs were in the set back when we did the...
Yeah.
Were all of them or most of them?
I think all of them.
And so we have footage, don't we, from...
Yeah, we should. Yes.
Yeah, so it's interesting to think about how some of these songs have evolved.
Definitely.
You said you wrote them a long time ago, but you still feel connected to the former self. I feel the same with the songs that were on the Dr. Calder EP release. Now the band Sunshine Emblem does quite different versions of those songs. Could you select maybe one of these songs and say a little bit about how it's evolved from back when you were performing it at the Dr. Calder show to the versions that you're releasing now?
They've all definitely changed a lot as some of the musicians in my band have changed and vibes have shifted with how we want to present them. I could talk about Robot Ghost, for example. First played it as a band and when I first wrote it, it definitely was slower, a lot more kind of spacey, a little bit less driving.
Yeah, it sounds euphoric now, this version, I think, which is an interesting juxtaposition too.
Yeah, I think tempo is probably a big thing. We play a lot of stuff faster than we used to.
Yeah, I noticed that. I like that.
Yeah, and I think
Better for dancing.
Better for dancing. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun and sometimes can be like more of a challenge lyrically, and like verbally, but I'm up for it because it's a lot of fun. And I think it just changes the energy of a song, or at least these songs. I think the tempo that we've kind of settled on now and that they are in the EP feels right.
Feels right to me too. Let's zoom in on Robot Ghost and maybe let's go through the lens of this collage, which was made on the back of the Sunken Ship Irony show that we did together.
Yes.
There's Cephas himself pouring some wine.
Wow.
Pouring out water for wine.
Look at that. There's Ivy.
And there's a tiny little Ivy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If anyone went to this show, the DJ afterwards was Lucis, was Catharsis.
Yes.
The show was Catharsis, so that was Clinton, who was one of the DJs doing the techno after party this time around too. So what's going on here with this image? How does this image relate to the song Robot Ghost?
Okay, so this was the first collage I made in this batch of song collages. And I think that a practice I would like to maybe do going forward is like working on a collage while I'm writing a song about the song that can kind of like bring some more visual inspiration. Could be an interesting experiment, at least.
Absolutely, yes.
So yeah, this was kind of the first one I did of these. Definitely feels like the simplest, but this background, I searched a while for like something that felt right, and this one I think definitely hits it. It's very kind of like, almost like you're in a cloud, or like there's really, really thick mist and fog, and there's like kind of shadows like some sort of spirits or ghosts. And this kind of like sun explosion thing, there's a lyric, well, one of the first lyrics, like, my emotions live inside my shell, ready to explode at any moment, and they do. Oh, they do. So it's kind of that explosion, like emotions that are just like a bursting, powerful ball of fire in the space. That's how intense they feel, like the sun burning explosion. And also the line, and the leaf kind of for poison ivy. And I wanted to incorporate some sort of like nature, and also it just felt right. And all of these like cutouts, all of them kind of have their own different vibes with the letters, but I think these were the most variation in lettering, because the rest of it's kind of simple, and it is definitely a song about chaotic emotions and some level of chaos.
Yes, we feel disordered, we feel disconnected again. I think that the opening part of this song, where the emotions live inside my shell, it's like the emotions have a life of their own. They seem to have been intruded, and they're making a home in my body. I was hoping we could bring the state of being that Robot Ghost is about. Think about that in relation to the state of being that one experiences when one is performing Robot Ghost and the other songs. So you were saying, as I was understanding it, was the experience, and I have this experience too, of performing, and I'm conscious of having been vulnerable in composing the song, and then I'm conscious of being back in that vulnerable state, and I'm also conscious of other people getting it, and it being healing in some way. There's connection, and connection is healing. So, do you have any thoughts to share about, say, the contrast between the experience that you're having when you're performing Robot Ghost and the experience that the Robot Ghost is about, the experience that you're narrating having had?
That's an interesting question. So yeah, when I wrote the song, it definitely came out of like painful emotions.
Yeah, the emotions seem alien to you, and we'd rather them not be taking up home in our body.
Yeah.
And we'd rather not have to be connecting with them. They seem to be an obstacle to connection.
Yeah.
They seem to be.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot of obstacles to connection, to like emotional presence. And when I am performing it, I guess, yeah, it's just that kind of relatability, and people being like, oh, I've felt that way before. And also, I don't know, Robot Ghost. Like, I'll talk a little bit about like how the song came to me originally. I was working at an ice cream shop, and I was making, like, this was like a specific day. I was working at this ice cream shop, and this was my last shift there ever. I made a milkshake for a customer. It was kind of busy for a cold day, and I was in there alone, made a milkshake for a customer, and then the like head ice cream maker slash like kind of my boss came up to the front, looked at the milkshake I made, picked it up, was like, you put too much milk in this, threw it in the trash in front of like all these customers. She was like, let me show you how to do it. I mean, one, I was upset about the waste of the food, and I know that's a huge part of working in any food service job. Like, there's a lot of food waste in the world, and it's awful, and there's some level of like acceptance one has to have working in those situations. But that was upsetting. That was a perfectly acceptable milkshake to sell. Or if she really didn't want me to sell it, I could have drinking it, and that would have been
she
cool.
seems to be trying to shame you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It felt like a public shaming.
Yeah,
and that was upsetting.
Yes, yes.
And I felt like kind of pulled out of my zone of what I was doing. And
knocks one out of alignment.
Huh?
It knocks one out of alignment.
Yeah.
That was my experience of service industry jobs in the last couple of years.
And some other stuff happened too, but I was journaling later on in the shift when it wasn't busy, and kind of drew this kind of drawing that was like inspired by that experience that said Robot Ghost, and it was very robotic, and like with some like lines about like feeling like a robot for capitalism and selling things, and so the song did like come out of that feeling of like I'm just selling things, I'm just like a machine, like I am worth nothing except for what I do for the company I work for.
Yes.
And then in comes like all of the emotions from my life and other experiences where I've been like too much or like invalidated or like having extreme emotional responses. Or I struggle with various mental illnesses, one of which is borderline personality disorder. An emotion I experience often, like kind of this emptiness, this numbness, you know, feeling like nobody loves me, to like a very dramatic, as it is in the song, degree. And so it feels like a song that's just always gonna feel really true to me.
Empty vessel. I love that the chorus begins, I'm an empty vessel. And you know, from a spiritual perspective, I sometimes find myself aspiring to be like an empty vessel, so that energy can like flow through the next space, clear stuff out the way. There is a kind of positive emptiness. I think the ego is very helpful, but sometimes one wants to kind of intentionally, okay, let's see if I can remove the impediment that is like, you know, my sliminess. Let's kind of get that out of the way. Is there that in this song as well? Or alongside the kind of painful emptiness?
That's interesting. Not really. I do like that idea. Are you talking about kind of more of like a meditative state? Like kind of like...
Yeah, when you get out of one's own way. One gets out of
Right.
one's own way. You could drop certain ideas that don't necessarily serve one anymore about who one is and what's going on. And through centering, one lets go of this baggage.
There's not really like this radical acceptance of like feeling empty. It's like kind of disturbing and distressing. But that's a good reframe, and I will consider that in my mental health work.
I'm an empty vessel. It's like an achievement. Sometimes. Near the end of this song, there's reference to the illusion of escape, never-ending parties. I thought I was on track, thought I was on the path, but already I've lost my way, aimlessly exploring new and scary territory. These disjointed emotions, and then, you know, I could go to the dance party context, and it leads one into kind of a dark place. Actually, I think that's territory that we can explore in relation to the song we haven't talked about yet, which is game. Playfulness is really important for me, and like, so the Kata Raga band that I curate encourages dancing, encourages a playful approach to life. But of course, there could be a dark side to this, and I think the song Game recognizes the games that people play. The most interesting thing for me in that one in the chorus is you think it's just a game. So is it a game? You think it's just a game. And then there's a series of questions, there's like 12 of them in total across the different choruses. Is it still a game when this is happening? What is this song saying about, say, the darker side of games and playfulness?
What immediately came to mind when you said that was like the stock market. I don't quite know why, because that wasn't specifically in mind when I wrote this song at all. That does feel like a side of like finance and money in our world that a lot of people don't know much about, aren't involved in at all, but there's so much money there, it kind of feels like this like secret thing, like you can only engage with if you know secret rules.
Right, and the person who
Which
is
I
playing,
don't.
the person who's playing the game, they're playing with the livelihood of,
Right,
of
exactly.
so many people, and there's so much human suffering. So we have this combination of exhilaration, entertainment, and then extreme suffering.
And really what it's about is so many people suffering in the world, and a few people having a lot of power.
We're just characters in this plot, depictions of society. And to me, there's a recurring thing in the Poison Ivy and the People songs where there's the initial recognition of oneself as, say, a cog in a capitalist machine, or as just a character in the plot. And then there's also a sense of power that is experienced in owning that recognition and kind of euphorically, like, I see this, and this like intelligence that I have is perhaps by the time that we're performing and other people are getting it, the intelligence, the recognition I am being used within this system is more who I am. That's more connected to my core sense of self.
Like the awareness of
Yeah,
that?
the awareness,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. It's more connected to my core sense of self than the being the cog in the machine.
Yeah.
So, is that something that you think is true? I think it's happening in more than one of these songs on the EP.
Yeah, I think that's true. For a lot of people, even like kids in school who kind of, everyone's kind of on their own different like path of radicalization, or maybe they're not, but when someone is and they kind of wake up and see the world for what it is, or educate themselves on whatever is going on in the world that's different from what we're being told.
Relatable content. When our old home was surrounded with parking meters and our car was towed overnight from outside our home, I was witnessing myself becoming more radicalized. I was at will terminated from my service industry job like the next week, and I suspect a lot of us experiencing ourselves become more radicalized.
Yeah, like why is this
through
happening?
such experiences?
And it's like
yeah.
someone's profiting off of it probably.
In this competitive fucking game. That's how this song ends, and I feel that it's very American. Like when I was talking with Steve Centrific on Back to the City, he was saying Americans have difficulty, he notices, in interpreting anything outside of the lens of winners and losers. And I think that is something that's true about this culture. The type of game that's being played all the time, it's like in the water, is a competitive fucking game.
I think it is a very
not a playful game.
Culture, and also a lot, like also what I wanted to mention, socialization and like being socialized to believe certain things and feel a certain way, and a lot of comparison, like comparing yourself to other people, comparing everything as if we're not just like all different people.
We're much less likely to be able to sit with and connect with our emotions and no longer experience them as alien inhabitants, intruders of our body, if we're constantly distracted by this comparison of ourselves with others, but which is encouraged though, but within the competitive fucking game that we find ourselves playing. But one of the cleverest things about the song game though, I think, is that it's kind of asking the person to second think, is this a game? Like the person who is maybe winning at the stock market or whatever, they think they're playing a game on some conscious or unconscious level, but then hang on, what's really going on? Is it still a game when these tragedies are occurring? Do you still like, let's reframe it.
Right.
Is it again?
Yeah, I think that is a good interpretation. And yeah, when you brought up distraction, that felt true. It's like, there's no time to like unpack the game because like everyone's busy trying to like
Survive?
make rent. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, survive.
Yes. Most of my last couple of years, between our interview before and now, I've been having service industry jobs and just trying to feed some children. And there's been much less of, there's been no songwriting, there's been less art. So it's been particularly fun to be doing all this collaborative stuff with you.
Yeah.
This is the collage that Ivy originally created for the event art. Could you say a little bit about the process of creating this?
Sure. I like collaging, and I like it because it feels very kind of like broken. Like it's like all these different pieces that are like broken from what they originated as, but like can be put together with other pieces to make like an infinite number of stories or images or whatever you want it to be.
They're fragments, but
Yeah,
you can intentionally
fragments.
place them in relation to one another.
Yeah, so I like that. With this collage, I mean, collaging in terms of visual art, collage is like probably the main thing that I engage in. So that just felt like the route I should go if I'm gonna make a flyer, because it felt the most true to me, and this is our show. So I went with that, and then I kind of found these, I have this kind of consistent theme going with the like colors and the highlighted and the black text, and then I just wanted like something else that was a little more emotional, I guess, or like just something that wasn't just
That's the
text
eyes?
or info.
Is it?
Yes,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of where I had the idea to do these eyes, these crying eyes. Our sticker, a good friend of mine made this design, and I told them I wanted crying plants, and they did an amazing job designing this. And yeah, that feels true. I mean, like, something about tears, and like, you'll often see me wearing glitter under my eyes, and that to me is a metaphor for like crying tears of glitter. And so this imagery of crying and whatever, it just feels, I like it, it's connected to all this. And so I cut out some different like patterns and made them eye-shaped and put these pupils in, and some eyelashes, and cut out some teardrops. And I just wanted to add that in because I thought it was true to the message and cool. And then I wanted to add some lines in white because I thought it was like jazz hands.
Jazz hands, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the flyer. And the background because poison ivy, plants.
Plants, exactly, yeah. And then, so we needed to put all the event stuff together quite quickly,
We
didn't
did.
we? Having decided, yes, let's do this, let's do the EP release.
Yes.
So then you sent me this.
Yes.
And then on Photoshop, it was fun co-creating the art together. So like
Yeah.
for the event banner,
Totally.
I asked you to send me just the plants in the background. So I used that as a backdrop and made it nighttime for the after party. It was really fun. Co-creation.
Co-creation.
Yeah, co-creativity, I love it.
Collaborating.
We will continue to co-create at the record release. It's going to be such a fun and vibrant night, I believe.
Yeah, me too. I'm very excited for it, and I think having a dance party after is so ideal.
Yeah, because it's part of your vibes, isn't it? I know
It
this
is,
from
yeah.
experiencing you in like dance party places, and it's going to be fun for us to host our live music friends and be like, hey,
Let's
come down this
dance.
rabbit hole with us.
Yeah.
And then if they like it a lot, then they could come back the following day for Crimes Against Ravers, July 4th dance party. And then the following day after that, we have 5 events at the VFW over July 4th weekend. So on the Saturday we have Cut a Rug, which is the event that I curate live music and DJs to dance to, followed by a new dance party called Bimho that my go-go dancer, pole dancing friend Daddy Goddess has put together with the Twin Flame DJs.
Cool.
Yeah, so 5 parties.
Woohoo!
So if you come to the Poison Ivy main party,
You should come.
which you should, then you can stay. We won't even have to turn the room around. It will just turn into the after party. If you feel like throwing an extra $5 or $10 at the DJs, you can, but you don't have to. You don't have to. And likewise, if you have a ticket for this and you arrive a little bit early, you can come in and catch Poison Ivy's set. If you feel like throwing some extra cash at Poison Ivy, then you can. There we go. We're existing within capitalism, but kind of trying to not be pawns quite so much.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, well, that is, I think, more or less everything that we need to cover for today. I'm really excited for July 3rd, Thursday, July 3rd, again, Friday like Thursday. A lot of people don't have to work the next day. We can all joyfully glory in not needing to go to work the following morning.
Yes.
Those of us that don't have to. We've been talking about the connection and the sense of joy and not being entirely just stifled within late stage capitalism, that songwriting and being in community and dancing allow. So we'll experience some medicine,
Yes.
which would be nice. Join us on Thursday, July 3rd at the Uptown VFW for the Robot Ghost EP release by Poison Ivy and the People. Thank you for joining me for the return of Back to the City,
Thank you.
Ivy. We'll see you Thursday, July